This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're working on the illustrated guide to Shabbos and food preparations. So of course we know, right? And this is really, there also are the tissues and carrying, but the main body of Hilchos Shabbos is really when it comes to the cooking and the food preparations. That's really where things get hot and heavy. That's what we're very involved with, right? We're not doing that much plowing and planting. We're not trapping the animals. Sukkah's time, maybe we got some bees or mosquitoes in the sukkah, right? Those are things that happen to come along on our Shabbos, right? Whereas the cooking, that's where we dive in head first, and that's where it gets complicated. So all cooking and baking must be done before Shabbos. Okay. So, well, we'll see, right? If things are not fully, ideally, things are all fully cooked going into Shabbos. And that we eat if you have them on the blech or on the hot plate, right? If it's not fully cooked, then what problem do we have? What's the concern that we have? If it's on the blech, but it's not fully cooked, what's a concern that we have? What's something that we need to be careful about? And I'm sorry, not to stir it, not to move it, not to open it, not to close it. Exactly. You can't move it. You can't open it. You can't close it. You can't stir it, because all of these things will speed up, accelerate the cooking process. So it's not that you can't have uncooked things or not fully cooked things on the blech that are just set to go, and it will cook by tomorrow and everything will be fine. It's not that you can't do that. It's just that it's a best practice to have everything fully cooked. Otherwise, if it's not, as you said, then there are issues that can come up. If you're moving on the blech, we got a problem. Because if you're accelerating the cooking, that's considered cooking on Shabbos. So therefore, ideally, right, all the cooking is done, everything is done before Shabbos, right? Feasibly, if one has it cooking in their oven and it's set to a Shabbos mode, or there is no light that goes on when you open the oven, and the oven will timer off already by the time you want to take things out. So that would also, right, be okay, taking things out. But you can't put things into an oven, even into an oven that's off but warm. You can't put things into an oven on Friday night. Why is that? Because
you're cooking. Literally, it is not cooking, but
it looks like you're cooking, right? And that's what we'll have over and over. There are two levels here. Level number one is you can't cook. If it's not fully cooked, you can't do anything that's going to accelerate, augment, or do anything towards that cooking. But if it's not cooking, you also will see can't do things that are mechazeh kabishol, which means that it appears like cooking. Okay, food is preparation require grinding, mixing two substances into one indistinguishable mass, or squeezing juice must be prepared before Shabbos. Right, all these different issues over here. Squeezing juice, right? So that is the issue of schita. Schita, you can't squeeze out liquids, right? Mixing two into one indistinguishable mass. Which of the 39 malachot would that be getting in under the category of? Kneading. Good. Kneading, right? Lash, kneading the dough. Good. Keeping food warm, page 36. Food which one wishes to serve warm on Shabbos should be placed on a source of heat after they are cooked. The source of heat in which the food is placed for the duration should be a special Shabbos hot plate or a metal sheet covering the stove top. Okay? That's what we call the blech, right? You're putting it onto a metal sheet covering the stove top onto the blech. What does the blech accomplish?
That is shade, not direct heat.
Okay, it's not direct heat, but the issue is we're always afraid what's called in the Gemara's term, Shema Yachate. I might stoke the flames. I might stoke those coals, right? So over here, now even if the blech doesn't cover the knobs, so the blech doesn't prevent me from adjusting it, but it's that visual, tangible reminder that, hey, it's Shabbos, hands off. So that's what that accomplishes. Okay. All the hot water needed for drinking and food purposes on Shabbos should be boiled in advance. It should then be kept hot in a Shabbos kettle or urn placed on the Shabbos hot plate or the metal sheet. Okay, hot water on Shabbos. So as long as you have a Shabbos urn, then that is perfectly fine. But if you have one of those hot water coolers, you have one of those water, yeah, which gives you both hot and cold water. So there, I can take cold water out on Shabbos. I can't take hot water out on Shabbos. Why is that? If I have a hot water cooler, like we have here in the shul, hot water I cannot take out on Shabbos. Cold water I can take out on Shabbos. Why is that?
Because it is working through the motor of the machine will go through another, I don't know how to explain it.
But why hot not and cold yes? I take out cold water, what's going to happen? Right, it's gonna go from that big bottle on top into the section, that cooling, and it might turn on the compressor to cool it. That's not a problem. But taking out hot water, that is a serious problem. Why is that? What's the difference? Anyone online is welcome to join in. Okay, the problem with the hot water is I'm not allowed to cook on Shabbos. When I take out hot water, what happens? Then cold water goes from that big bottle on top and replenishes, fills in that amount of hot water that I took out. It goes into that heating area, whatever it is, however it is that it heats it. So I'm cooking that water. But when I take out cold water, what happens? Water from the big bottle goes into there. Okay, I'm allowed to cool water on Shabbos. I'm not allowed to turn on the condenser, right? However, why is it okay then? Right? The condenser might go on because it might go on. It might not go on. It's not an automatic that I'm putting water in. Right? I take out hot water, that cold water that goes in gets cooked. Regardless of the heating element being on or not, there's enough hot water in there that that cold water goes in, that's getting cooked. By the way, the same thing applies to using the regular hot water for my faucet on Shabbos. On any of my faucets, my cold water in the kitchen, bathroom, wherever it is. If I turn on the hot water, we've got a problem because what happens is that comes from my boiler, and now cold water goes in there and gets cooked up. So my taking out hot water from anywhere in my house on Shabbos where it's going to be replenished, whether it's my faucet in the kitchen and bathroom, or whether it is my the cold hot water, which has the big 5-gallon or 3-gallon water on top, that's going to be a problem. If I've got a hot water urn, which is a closed unit, and whatever I take out comes out, nothing else is going in, that's not going to be a problem. But using the cold water on Shabbos, right, even from my water cooler, whatever you want to call that, that's not going to be a problem. Just like opening my refrigerator on Shabbos is not going to be a problem. Why is that not a problem? There are some people who will be makbid, who will be very, very careful, scrupulous to only open the door while the motor is going. But the general practice is not to specifically open it. Then one can open their refrigerator with reckless abandon. Why is that? The compressor might go on because the compressor might go on. Opening at the refrigerator does not automatically turn the compressor on. And therefore it might go on, it might not go on. that's not going to be an issue. If something is going to be an automatic result, that's a problem on Shabbos. What do we call that? A fancy word for that is a psik resha. Psik resha comes from the term literally. Psik resha means chop off the head, right? Well before Lego was on the market, so a common toy for children to play with was a chicken head. Sounds lovely. So what would one do? One would knock off the head of the chicken, right? And then little Chaim has what to play with. Now, are you allowed to do that on Shabbos? No, right? Because doing that is killing the bird, right? But I don't intend to kill the bird, right? That's not my intention. I just want to have the head. So Gemara says, yes, but psik resha velo yamut. Are you going to remove the head? Is it not going to die? So even though it might be an unintended consequence, if it is an automatic, unavoidable, even though unintended consequence, that we use the term as a psik resha. And that is an automatic consequence, and that's a problem. If opening up the refrigerator door would be a psik turning on the condenser, then we have a problem. We're not be allowed to do that. But being that it's not a psik we can. As opposed to opening up an oven, let's say there is no light and the oven is on. So there, that is a psik because the moment you open the oven, what happens? The fires shoot up, right? The fires kick in. Why is that? So we mentioned before, let's say the average temperature in the house is 70 degrees and the temperature in the refrigerator is, let's say, 35 degrees. There's a 35-degree disparity between the refrigerator temperature and the outdoor temperature and the room temperature. Therefore, I don't need, the compressor doesn't need to go on immediately to try to maintain that 35-degree temperature. Not such a big deal. Whereas the oven wants to keep it at 350 and the house is at 70. We have a 280-degree differential between the two. You open up that refrigerator, the oven door, it's going to very quickly cool off. Therefore, we need the oven is set to automatically go on. Okay, preparing tea essence. And this, they often like to ask this question, right? Even though, right, with our kli shlishi maneuver, it's not such an issue. Tea is something that is in the category of what's called the kale habishul. What is kale habishul? Good. Easily, kal is light, easily cooked. So we have a general rule that a kli rishon, which is the pot that either is on the fire or was directly on the fire, the kli rishon, that cooks, whether it's on the fire, not on the fire. The kli sheni, which is I've taken from that first kli rishon, I've now poured into a second vessel that was never on the fire, things were not cooked up in there, that is a kli sheni. A kli sheni typically does not cook, but things that are kale habishul, things that are easily cooked, will cook even in a kli sheni, the secondary vessel. Tea is the epitome of kale habishul. It's these thin little leaves. They cook very easily, even in a kli sheni. So therefore, when it comes to making tea on Shabbos, it can be challenging. A simple shortcut is to utilize the kli shlishi, right? Because even though kali bishul, easily cooked things, will cook in a kli sheni, they won't cook in a kli shlishi. So that's why if you're preparing tea or something like that, so you have your hot water urn, that's your kli rishon. Fill up from that 1 cup, that's your kli sheni. Pour from there into another cup, that is your kli shlishi, and you are good to go on Shabbos. Kli shlishi is gold on Shabbos. The more traditional way is before Shabbos, you prepare tea essence, right? What do you do that? Before Shabbos, you make a super concentrated tea, right? That's your tea essence. And then ideally you would leave that on the blech. right? So it stays warm. And then you would mix that with your hot water whenever you want on Shabbos, and that way you will be fine. Okay. Fruits and vegetables that are mixed with dirt and other unwanted matter should be washed before Shabbos. What's the issue over there? Borer, separated. Is that an issue, let's say, with our, we like to wash off our grapes, our cherries, tomatoes, cucumbers. Yeah. Is that a problem on Shabbos to rinse those off? Why not? Correct. No, it's not a problem. Why not a problem?
Because the dirt has to be like visible and like just really overly
Yeah.
spoiled.
Yeah, right. As Gabriela said, there is no visible dirt there. There is no borer that's being done. I'm just rinsing it off. Maybe there is some pesticide, who knows what, or maybe the person before me in the store wanted to feel how those tomatoes felt. I'd rather not have his fingerprint, right, going down my esophagus, right? So what will I do? So I'll rinse it off first. But there's no discernible Pesolet, right? When it comes to borer, choosing, there's the ochel and there's the pesolet, right? There's no discernible. The ochel is the good, the pesol is what you don't want. So it literally means waste, but it could even be not waste. I got peas and carrots, and I want the peas, but I don't want the carrots. The carrots become the pesolet. It's that which I don't want. There's no there's no discernible pesolet. There's not a problem rinsing off. Now, when you buy grapes, they come in a bag that can serve as like a colander, as like a sifter. There are holes in that bag, right? So therefore, I'm putting it in there. Is that an act of borer? Because now it's keeping the grapes, but the water's going out. Is that an act of borer? That would be okay. Because I didn't have a mixture of grapes and water, and now I'm separating the grapes from the water. Right? It's running right through. I never had a mixture of grapes and water. I'm washing off the grapes. So therefore, whether I'm holding the grapes in my hand and the water's going there and then spilling out and I'm left with the grapes, or I'm holding that bag, either way, that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, but I guess like because in general you wouldn't use a strainer on Shabbos because of the miyad. Like
Okay.
that's why I was confused.
Correct. So a strainer on Shabbos to separate a mixture, that is a problem, right? When it comes to borer, and borer is up there with bishul when it comes to the Shabbos's greatest hits, right, or greatest misses, whatever you want to call it, right? So borer is separating. So there we've got the three cardinal requirements in order for borer to be allowed. They are good. It's got to be good from the bad, and it's got to be miyad biyad. Miyad means immediately. Biyad means with your hand, as opposed to using some sort of a tool, vessel to do it. Basically, it's got to be eating. It can't be industrial, right? And therefore, when we say your hands, that would include fork, knife, spoon, right? That which we try to encourage one another to utilize when we are eating. That's considered to be an extension of our hands. That is all considered to be biyad. Okay? So a strainer would be a problem when I'm separating two foods. But even to use a strainer for my grapes is not going to be a problem. Now, it could very well be that the mashgichim in the Beth Jacob kitchen will say, don't use a strainer for the grapes because they don't want people to get into the habit of using a strainer, because if I can use a strainer for the grapes, why can't I use a strainer for the soup or whatever else, where I'm actually doing a separating of an existing mixture. Okay? But in fact, it's not going to be an issue. Okay. The next thing they speak about is separating trumot and ma'asrot. Okay, that's when you have the holy foods of Israel. So truma and maaser must be set aside, and you can't do that on Shabbos or Yom Tov. That falls into the category of mitakein kli. I'm fixing something. I'm rendering something usable, something that was not usable before. Before the truma, the tithes are separated. It has a status. It's called tevel, and one is not allowed to utilize it to eat it. And this is a tikkun that one is not allowed to do. Okay, that is in Israel. Here in the States also, one does have to be careful. Sometimes people think, oh, they have Jaffa oranges at Costco. Oh, let's support Israel. Right? Very nice, but not so good from a halachic point of view, because you have to make sure that it is properly tithed in Israel before it made its way to Costco. And if it didn't, then we don't want to start with the tithing of it over here. It is complicated, it is difficult, and yeah, we rather not go there. Therefore, there are other ways to support Israel. Okay. Opening cans and food packages. What's that going to be an issue of? Which malacha is that going to go under? Of the 39 malachot, what's that going to come under? Makeh bepatish. Makeh bepatish is the final blow of the hammer, meaning turning something into a kli. Turning something into a kli. Okay? So things that are going to be, a can is a problem. Because when you cut off that top, you've turned that kli, you've turned that into a usable container. Besides, even when the tuna fish is out, I could use this to store, I don't know, whatever it might be. Okay? So I want to be careful. The boxes of cereal, all these things should be opened up before Shabbos. How about wine bottles? How about soda bottles?
The cork is not part of
Okay, a cork is not a problem at all. Why is a cork not a problem at all?
independent of the.
Good. It's a separate, independent piece. I'm not making it into it. When I remove the cork, I haven't transformed this into a bottle. It was a bottle before. It was a bottle during. It's a bottle after. I haven't made into a bottle. Similar if I have a bottle of pickles or something like that, and I open that can and I open it, everything's fine. It was a cover. It is a cover. It was a bottle. It is a bottle. Not an issue whatsoever. Right? If I've got a bottle of beer that has one of those, not a screw cap, what's it called on top, whatever, a tab on top, whatever it is, right? I can take that off, right? I don't know if anyone want to drink beer, but for those who enjoy it, fair enough, right? It was a bottle, it was a cap, it is a bottle, it is a cap. I'm not creating anything new. The box of cereal, I pull off that tab, and oh, now I've got a very nice little box that closes, a little tab goes in there. I open up the can of tuna, now I've got myself a can. How about a bottle of wine that doesn't have a cork, but has a screw on top? How do I deal with that? That's going to be a problem. Why? Because, well, that's going to be a problem. When I take it off and that ring breaks, I now have a cap. Okay? And we'll soon distinguish between that and a bottle of soda. Okay? So if I have a bottle of wine that the cap has not been opened before Shabbos, and again, it's a screw-on cap, it's not a cork. So what do I do if I want that wine? I take a fork and I stab it, right? I put a hole into that cap. What have I accomplished? I've destroyed it. Now when I take it off, have I created a kli? I have not created a kli. It's not a usable cap, right? Similarly, if I didn't open my can of tuna before Shabbos, I can puncture the bottom of the can. I make a hole in the bottom of the can, and then I can take off the top. And now I have not created a kli because this is not a kli. It's got a hole in the bottom, and therefore it's not usable as a kli.
For a tuna can, if you're peeling off, like it's a peel off top, because what about like using a can opener? That wouldn't.
Can opener is not a problem.
Oh, it's not?
The can opener is not a problem.
It's not a problem of like.
Right? We don't distinguish in the can of tuna whether it is a pull-off cap or I'm using a can opener, right? The problem, the only problem is I'm making it a kli, right? And using a can opener, if that makes it into a kli, we got a problem. It doesn't make it into a kli, we don't have a problem.
So it will be a kli only if there is no hole under it.
Exactly. If there's no hole on the bottom, then we've got a kli. There's a hole in the bottom, we are good to go. Now, there are those who also won't open up a bottle of soda, okay? But there are those that differentiate between a bottle of soda and a bottle of wine, between a plastic cap and a metal cap. And my understanding in the differentiation is as follows. The plastic cap started off as a cap, and then it got twisted on in a way that didn't break the white ring. And now I take it off, I'm breaking the white ring. Now, it was a cap with the white ring. It's a cap without the white ring. I have not created a cap. It was a cap and it was a bottle. Now it's been put on, and the only way to take it off, the manufacturer put it on, the only way to take it off is breaking the white ring. I break the white ring, right? It was a cap, it is a cap. Whereas by the bottle, my understanding is the way it is, it started off as a disc, and the bottle came underneath, and then the machine went, and that's what, so it was not a cap before, right? Now it's on the bottle, right? Now when I take it off, now it is a cap. It was not a cap before, it was a flat disc that was then pressed around the bottle. Now that I'm taking it off, now I'm turning it into a cap. Either open it before Shabbos or puncture it before you open it. Though, I don't know, maybe my tastes have gotten more expensive, or people are giving me more expensive bottles when they come for Shabbos, but I haven't seen a twist-off bottle for a while. Right? It's mostly corks that I've been, yeah. Even a self-proclaimed connoisseur of fine Kedem grape juice like myself, I'm used to corks at this point. Okay, another thing to do with page 40 is to cut toilet paper in advance for Shabbos. Toilet paper may not be torn on Shabbos. Why is that? What category does that go under? Yeah, Korea, right? Yeah. And that's going to be an issue if I'm cutting it to size, which we do. Now, some people say, well, don't do it on the perforations. Others say, do it on the perforations. Either way, it's a problem, right? You're cutting it to the size that is your personal preference, which we're not going to go into here, right? It's your personal preference when you are in the WC, the wash closet. So that is going to be a problem, right? So, some people would actually tear toilet paper and have it in a bag hanging over there and have torn toilet paper. Or typically we have a box of tissues. Now, tissues also, though, one needs to be careful. There are, right, the box of tissue that we have, you pull out one, the next one comes. That's either because it's actually attached a little bit, enough to pull out, or it is simply folded in. Thank you. Kleenex, Members Mart, right? So when it is folded in like that, that's perfectly fine, right? So when you're buying your tissues, you're going to be using it on Shabbos, you want to make sure that there are tissues that are not attached and slightly perforated, and that's what pulls out the next one, right?
And sometimes they kind of rip apart.
Right, right. So you have to be careful, right? We used to buy some, and then we've clarified with Jose and those who do the ordering, right, to make sure that we get those that are not attached, right? And that way, of course, during the week it's not an issue, but it's also being used here on Shabbos, right? So that's another thing to have in mind, to have a box of tissues in the bathrooms, and that way no one is in a uncomfortable situation. Let's say one finds oneself in an uncomfortable situation. You go to someone's house and nature calls, and there are no tissues there. There's just the good old-fashioned roll of toilet paper. Okay? So, what does one do in such a case?
Specific way, so you don't do it like the natural way, but you kind of like.
Okay, so there we have what's called kavod habrios, human dignity, self-respect. Okay, so you're not going to walk out of the bathroom, with this, with the whole roll trailing behind you because you didn't break it. That would be somewhat humiliating, right? So there, one would. You'd have to tear some toilet paper. You would do as minimally as you can, and you would do it with a shinoi. A shinoi means doing it in an unusual manner, right? And that way, whatever it is, however you want to do it, I'll leave it to your creativity, right? But look, it's important to be in a situation where to try to avoid those situations. 41, electricity on Shabbos, okay, right? So we can leave lights on before Shabbos. We also use a Shabbos clock, a Shabbos timer. I mentioned before, we had a lot of old ones. I gave them away a while ago, so I think some of you might have used them. Good.
And I didn't buy a few more, so
good.
Like
So there are these Shabbos lamps, which are very, very a very smart idea that was done. That it's done in a way that basically it's a bulb, and there is a cylinder around it that's open on one side, and then if you swing it around to where it's open, you get the light. You swing it closed, and that way the light is on all the time. But it's like having a light on in a closet and closing the closet door, opening the closet door, right? And then a little more recently, with the past couple of years, there's a different type which uses an LED, and the older ones are excellent, but I found it hard to read by those lights. Whereas the new ones are so wonderful that my wife and we use it as our night lights clipped onto the headboard by our bed all week long. And then we just turn it on before Shabbos. But it's excellent reading, and you open the little latch on it. And if anyone needs, I could put it onto our WhatsApp group, just where that is. I just sent it to somebody. My phone is in the office. Yeah. Okay. Refrigerators. Okay. Some say, right, you open it at any time. That's me. Others say it can be open only when the motor is running, lest opening the refrigerator cause the motor to start running. Okay? Once again, the standard orthodox approach is that one can open a refrigerator, right? Now, an issue that does come up, though, is the light in the refrigerator. So it used to be, right, back in the days, what was the light? A nice little incandescent light. And it was easy to unscrew it or screw it. Also used to be that why would opening the door activate? There's a little switch on the door, right? And then when the door is closed, right, then the light goes off. The door is open, that piece goes open, and it goes on. And that was very, very easy to handle. You take a little piece of tape. You don't want to start with the light bulb, or as they moved from light bulbs to LED, which is a lot harder than to activate or deactivate. So then simply You have a little bit of duct tape, and you tape that switch closed, and that way the refrigerator thinks the door is always closed, and you're good to go. Open the door, the light doesn't go on and off. That is fine. Now, many refrigerators don't work like that. Instead, it's magnetized. So when the door closes, it gets magnetized, and that turns off the light. You open the door, it becomes demagnetized, and then the light goes on. So I'm sorry?
The sensor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no way, like duct tape doesn't do the trick, but a magnet does the trick. And you need to play with it. And I have in my roll-on carry-on, I keep magnets in there. Not knowing exactly where I might end up for Shabbos, I have my magnets in there. And you just have to find the spot. You have to play with it a little bit, but find the spot on top there where you're magnetizing it. And that way it thinks the door is closed and the light stays off. Once you find that spot, just put a piece of tape on that so it doesn't move. And that way you are good to go. Remember now that we're in Israel, and we rented, we had a little place with a refrigerator. So it was religious owners. We called them to help us with the Shabbos because old LED. The guy came and did something, and it seemed that it worked, but we were concerned that it actually didn't work, right? It seemed that the light was off, stayed off, right? But we weren't sure. So I put my cell phone into the refrigerator with recording a video. And then we closed the door and then waited a minute or so, opened the door. And in fact, the light was going on and off. So we needed to work a little bit more extensively in order to get that usable on Shabbos. But again, refrigerators, if it's the old-fashioned refrigerators, you have a nice little switch there, which is a pleasure, a little bit of duct tape. Otherwise, it gets a little more complicated, but it is doable. 42, muktzah objects. That's a big category in and of itself. What does muktzah actually mean?
An object. What thing?
What does muktzah mean? An object or thing will become muktzah. What does it actually mean?
Something that is prohibited to move.
Muktzah is prohibited to use. Muktzah actually means set aside. Okay? It's set aside from usage. Something that is set aside from usage, so we're not supposed to move it on Shabbos. Okay? So that will apply to money, electrical items, important documents, writing objects, all of those things. So ideally before Shabbos, one should be careful to move them away, put them away so you don't have an issue. Okay? Interesting. If a man uses the same towels for both Shabbos and weekdays, so then the tefillin bag should be removed, from the talis bag before Shabbos, because the tefillin, we don't wear them on Shabbos. They are muktzah. They are set aside from our usage, right? A rock, twigs, all those things, if they have not been designated before Shabbos for usage, they are all muktzah. And there are varying levels of how muktzah something is, and that will determine, can I move it if I want to use it for a permitted usage? Can I move it if I need, that's called tzorech gufo, I need it itself, or tzorech makomo, I need the place where it is. Can I move it if I need that place? Let's say if I forgot my pen, right, on the table, and now it's Shabbos, I need to, right? So being that I need the place, a pen is something that I would be able to move. Other things will be more problematic, even tzarech makomo, right? So that's a whole separate issue that we will get into as a topic in and of itself. But here where we're discussing things to be doing before Shabbos, So therefore, you want to try to get the muksa things out of the way, right? Checking one's pockets before Shabbos. That's a good thing to do, A, for muktzah, and B, for if the Erev is down, carrying. So you want to be careful in terms of the carrying. Okay. Right? As Shabbos draws near, this is part of what we say in our Bama Madlikin, that one should gently say to the family, right? A ravtem, a sartem, hadliku es haner. A ravtem, have you set up the eruv? Have you taken off maaser? Okay, then let's go ahead and light the candles. Okay, and a nice thing is for the husband to, the mitzvah of Shabbos candles is a mitzvah on the household. That has been adopted by the wives, by the women of the house. But the man should also have a chelek, a part of that. And therefore, right, a nice thing is that he prepares the candles for the lighting that goes on afterwards. Okay, if one is on their own, then one should light their own candles. Whether one is single or one's wife might be away, then one would light the candles themselves. Okay, let's go to candle lighting. Okay, the reason why the rabbis instituted halakas neros, lighting candles, is, what does it give us? Shalom bayis, a nice tranquility. It's interesting to note that the Tzedukim, or in the present day the Karaites, or those who rejected the rabbinic teachings, so they take the Torah literally when it's not meant to be taken literally, or applied where it's not meant to be applied. For example, the pasuk says, "Lo tavaru eish b'chol moshoteichem," no fire should be burning or lit in your homes. And we understand that to mean, the Torah Shabbat Peh explains that to mean, you cannot ignite the flame, but you can have fires burning. We mentioned before, right, keeping the food on the blech before Shabbos, going in, ideally it's fully cooked, right? And we specifically go ahead and do light candles to add to the warmth. Otherwise, it's a very, very cold, a very cold, difficult Shabbos. Okay, as we said, this goes to the women. When there's no woman in the house, the man lights the candles. Okay, from the time a woman lights the candles, then she has accepted Shabbos. Actually, from the time she makes the bracha of hadlakos neiros, right? So then, right? So then she is already accepting the Shabbos upon her, which means there's a problem in her lighting. That's one of the three main examples that I think of, where typically we make a bracha before doing the mitzvah and then do the mitzvah. Here we do the mitzvah, we do the act, and then we make the bracha. So why does the woman cover her eyes?
Derive benefit.
Good. To still be in the midst of the mitzvah, to not have completed the mitzvah. Cover the eyes so that one does not get benefit from it. We said before, the mitzvah of the candles is the beauty, the glow, the shalom bayit. So therefore, the woman covers her eyes, does not yet get to see it, makes the bracha, right? Lights the candles, covers her eyes, makes the bracha, and then enjoys the candles. Similarly, we mentioned that when it comes to washing one's hands, right? So we want our hands to be purified before we make the bracha. So therefore, what do? So we want to make sure we make the bracha after we wash our hands, but before we've completed the mitzvah. So therefore, we do it before we dry our hands. And that way, we're doing it while we're still in the midst of the mitzvah. And then the bracha is still somewhat prior to the mitzvah, because then it's prior to the completion of that mitzvah. A man who lights Shabbos candles is not accepting upon himself the sanctity of Shabbos. Typically, he's going to be driving to shul, still davening mincha. Therefore, a man can make the bracha and then light candles, and he is right? And then he has in mind, of course, that he's not yet accepting Shabbos, but he's doing the mitzvah without accepting Shabbos upon himself. A woman can also do the same thing. If a woman is planning on wants to light at home and then wants to drive to shul or get driven to shul, so then a woman can light candles with a tanai that she's not accepting Shabbos yet with the lighting of the candles. In that case, would she first make the bracha and then light? She's making a tanai, making a condition. So anyhow, she's not accepting Shabbos. Nevertheless, the woman always does it in the regular manner the woman does, so that one does not get confused in other situations. So the woman, even that situation where she's making the tanai, would first light, cover her eyes, make the bracha, and then see the candles. And then, even though she will not be accepting Shabbos until afterwards, enabling her to drive to shul. A minimum for a married woman is that 2 candles are going to be lit, or actually, even a single woman who's living on her own, right? So she would light 2 candles, one for the Zachor and one for Shamor. Those are the 2 terms that were said simultaneously at Sinai when the Torah tells us about when it tells us about the Sinai experience in Exodus and Parshat Yitro. There it says Zachor Yom HaShabbos, when Moshe repeats what happened way back then in Devarim. He repeats what happened back in Shemos. There he says Shamor, and as we say in Lechadodi, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibur echad. They were said simultaneously by God, that which we can't do. They were both said simultaneously. Those are the 2 aspects of Shabbos. The Shamor is that which we abstain from. The Zachor is that which we go ahead and do. And therefore, a minimum of 2 candles are lit, one for Zachor, one for Shamor. There are lots of different minhagim, customs. Typically, for each child, another candle is lit. I know Natalie has lined up exactly who is each candle, and she thinks about each of the children when she lights that candle. Okay, the candles become muktzah, right? And therefore, the best practice is that it be lit in a place where it will not need to be moved over Shabbos or moving the table. Okay. Okay, if one is going to be eating out and one is lighting at home, you want to light candles that will still be burning when one gets home. Okay, in a difficult situation where, let's say, a person is in a hospital or a hotel where one is not, well, a hospital, let's say, but one is not allowed to light any candles, right? So there one can use electric candles, and one can even make a bracha on that. I have a 2-candle electric candelabra that I have to lend to people if they'll be in the hospital for Shabbos. Then that can be used. Okay, the Shabbos candle lighting time that is on our calendars, on most things, that is 18 minutes before Shabbos, right? If one is running late, as long as you know you're before Shabbos, then one would light candles after that Shabbos candle lighting time, as long as, again, it's 18 minutes before Shkia, before sunset. Once the sun sets, it's Shabbos. So one should not be lighting candles after that point. If one did miss, then typically one accepts upon themselves to light an additional candle as we go forward. Okay, I think we'll call it over here.
And
Good.
The early times you can like an hour.
Okay, okay, good point. There's also how early one can light. Let's say in the summer when Shabbos comes in very late. So the earliest one can light is what's called Plag HaMincha, which is typically about an hour and 15 minutes before sunset. So before that, it's too early to light. That's why once we hit the summer month, the Beth Jacob calendar includes candle lighting time and the earliest candle lighting time. Because let's say when we start at 6:15 with our mincha, so the reason we start 6:15 and not 6 o'clock or earlier than that is starting 6:15. Basically, the earliest time to the Kabbalah Shabbos is about 6:35. So that enables people to light candles, and then we start Kabbalah Shabbat. Yeah. Here in California, the earliest that it typically gets is I'm not sure if that's correct or not. The latest that the earliest candle lighting time gets is 6:35. Right? Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Laila Tov, everybody. Good night. Everybody feel well. And we'll see you next week, please God.
Shut this down.
Yeah.